So we're back with part 3, Oedipus part 3. Where did we leave off last time, guys?
So we left off with a debate talking about free will versus this sort of preordained path set by the gods that are in the play. And we're looking at it through the lens of Oedipus, whether he is this arrogant guy who's stepping in to save the day, supposedly, or if he really didn't have as much of a say in the matter as it would appear. But last time we mainly talked about this word kalumenos, which is to be called. And we talked about it within the context of how Oedipus is referring to himself, and especially the way his name translates, because there's a couple of ways that you could translate his name.
Hold on one second. What is kalumenos?
Kalumenos is the Greek for like to be called, like it's like how I'm named, or if someone were
as I am called,
or nicknamed even.
Oh yeah, we did that breakdown of the 3 different possible meanings. It's a triple entendre. Can you have a triple entendre?
Of course,
a double entendre?
You can have a quadruple one.
Okay, cool.
It gets up to 4.
It gets up to, what's the limit?
There's the limit is the word for it that you can think of.
Google entendre.
Quintuple.
Infinitendre.
Infinitendre.
So, as you were going, okay, so we were talking about the Illuminati.
The Illuminati. We were talking about the Illuminati and its 3 definitions for the name of Oedipus. So Oedipus Rex, we know, is Oedipus the king, but the name Oedipus itself is first translated potentially as lame foot. Is that right?
Swollen foot. Swell foot. Mm-hmm.
Swell foot, and that could refer to his physical condition, because in the story of Oedipus, he's had this. It's a leather thong.
He's got the gimpy foot. His
Yes.
parents stabbed him in the feet with a stake.
Yeah, and threw him out in the woods, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the first definition. It's a very literal. The second definition is this sort of referring to his feet in the sense of like being bipedal, so having just like 2 feet, and it's like, biped,
biped.
or wow, biped.
Whoa, biped. Settle down, human being. You don't know what you're doing. You're running amok. You think you got a brain, but actually your brain's getting you in big trouble because you think you know everything, but you don't.
It's very fitting.
Is that about right?
That
That's
was
very
beautiful.
fitting.
Yeah. And then what's the third one?
Third one.
The one is I, the foot, no.
Right. Which is kind of like the second one.
Yeah, so the foot is, short for the human, right? Identifying the human by the foot, which is exactly the kind of thinking that is required to solve the riddle of the Sphinx, because it asks what creature goes on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet at noon, and 3 feet in the evening. So it's defining the human being in terms of the different number of appendages that are used. So the foot. And so if his name means I, the foot, pous, Oedipus, no, oida, if it's Oedipus, I know, I, the foot, know, then it seems to be raising the question on the double entendre level. He's not raising this question, but his words raise the question for the audience as to how he got the knowledge to answer the riddle. And it sounds like he got the knowledge out of his own name, which means that whoever gave him the name gave him the knowledge, which means he came supplied, well supplied with the information that it would take to answer the riddles, which makes the feat of answering the riddle not quite what he or other people who knew about it thought, which was that he's really just a smart guy. Now, the riddle itself doesn't even seem like it would be that hard to solve after you know it. It seems really simple.
Sure.
So I don't know, that could be
So
considered too. But
on that note, before we go on, which of the potential translations do you prefer? Let's go down the row.
No, I think that the whole point of of our discussion would be to throw all of them out there and try to see if any of them make sense. And in this case, all of them make sense.
Right.
But the more interesting side of it is they make sense that Oedipus himself cannot make, which means that there's something going on, and this is why you were saying, does it seem maybe that he's not in as much control of his life as he thinks he is, because it seems as though he's had some all kinds of divine help along the way. I mean, he was supposed to be killed as a child, and this will come up in the passage. Maybe we should move to the passage we're going to look at today. I picked a passage in the middle of the play. It's at line 711, I think it is. And it's Yocaste speaking. And by the way,
if they want to follow along, where could they do that at?
Yeah, so if you want to look at the text while we're talking, it's at Oedipus, that's the normal spelling of Oedipus, Oedipus dash mappings.com. So if you go there, there's going to be a tab for the text, and then you've got a choice between the Greek and the English versions of the text. And you can jump back and forth between them if you have some Greek. So, shall we?
Ancient Greek, right?
Ancient Greek, that's right. I just call it Greek, but it's not at all modern Greek. So, yeah, good to stipulate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other
Sweet
thoughts before we get to that passage?
I think we should dive into the passage.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what we've done before, Michael, you've read the passage. Maybe you're a little farther from our screen here. Oh, the screen's dark now.
Uh-oh, your computer died.
I think it went to sleep.
Oh, it just went to sleep?
Well, it's not acting like that.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, good.
It's back.
Okay, maybe one of you would like to read it, or do you think I should read it?
If I took it last time, Aaron, how do you say?
Yeah, sure. From which line to which line? We're at 707.
From the top, this is going to be about 20 lines.
Okay.
When you get down to the bottom, I'll have to move the text.
All right, let's do it. Okay.
So this is Yocaste. You are now Yocaste. Oh, and let me tell you what's just happened.
Okay.
So Oedipus was called in Tiresias, the prophet, to question him about things and get more information, because apparently he feels like he didn't get enough information from Creon, who went to Delphi to get information about what to do about the plague they're having. And so Tiresias didn't want to tell Oedipus anything, and Oedipus got really mad and started threatening him, and it was pretty verbally abusive to him, to this old prophet. And so Tiresias eventually gets goaded into revealing that he thinks that that he knows that Oedipus is the killer of Laius. They're looking. The god has instructed them through Delphi to find and punish Laius' killer, and Tiresias reveals this, and that makes Oedipus go even more loco, and he's very upset, and then he starts figuring out that Creon, his brother-in-law, that is his mother, is also his uncle, because it's his mother's brother. He thinks that Creon somebody must have bribed Tiresias into saying this, and the reason why they would have done it is to get Oedipus exiled from the country or executed, one or the other. And then Creon would take over as ruler. So Oedipus has hypothesized a chain of events that, because he completely dismisses the idea that Tiresias is a genuine prophet. Although previously he treated him as if he did believe in him, but as soon as Tiresias said, well, you're going to turn out to be Laius' killer, he's like, okay, well, this can't be true. Since this can't be true, there must be an explanation for how you came up with this statement, and the only explanation that makes sense is that somebody is using you to get to me, and that somebody must be Creon. So he has come to the conclusion that Creon is trying to usurp his power, and then Creon comes into the stage again. He's been there already before, but went out, and he comes in and says, I hear you're saying terrible things about me. And he and Oedipus get into a big argument.
Mm-hmm.
And after they've argued for a little bit, Jocasta comes out, and she more or less says, boys, 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 let's not be arguing here.
Yeah.
Let's calm down. And she persuades Oedipus to respect what Tiresias has said. And Oedipus asks, do you understand what you're asking me to do? Because to respect what Tiresias has said means to consider the possibility that he will be found to be Laius' killer. Now, he still doesn't really think he's Laius' killer, but he does think that he's now liable to be found to be Laius' killer, which would make him guilty and therefore subject to being expelled from the land. So she has prevailed on him to calm down and accept the accusation to that extent. And then he's still concerned. He's concerned about the prophecy, and she now is going to talk to make him, to reassure him that he's really got nothing to worry about. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Cool. So whenever I say these ancient Greek names and I butcher them, you can just go ahead and correct me out loud, and I'll fix and keep reading, okay?
How about we just leave them the way you say them?
Yeah, okay, sure, whatever you want to do. All right. Now, having put yourself at ease regarding what you say, hear me and learn why, as far as you're concerned, no mortal thing has any share in prophesying art. I shall make visible to you signs of these things. Shortcuts. A prophecy reached Laios. A prophecy reached Laios once. I will not say from Phoebos. You gotta correct this one. What is it? Phoebos?
Perfect. See,
was
just
that
keep
perfect?
going.
Okay, cool. So a prophecy
That's
reached
a
Laios.
name for Apollo.
Okay, another name for Apollo. So a prophecy reached Laios once. I will not say from Phoebos himself, but from one of his. I will not say from Phoebos. A prophecy reached Laios once. I will not say from Phoebos himself, but from one of his subordinates. That fate would have him die by a child's hand, one who might issue forth from me and him to start with, per report at least, strange men, highway bandits, murder where 3 wagon tracks converge. As for the child, not 3 days grown, him, the former, having bound together ankles, flung by others' hands onto the trackless mount. And so Apollo neither brought about that he become his father's killer, nor that Laios undergo the awful thing he feared, to die at his son's hands. Such things prophetic speech set forth, so you should pay them little heed, for what the god has need to track, he will himself with ease reveal.
Great. Do you want to, I don't know, do you have anything to say about that?
I got a problem with this immediately.
Okay.
But
Well, go ahead. That's what we're looking for.
the fact that
problems.
the fact that Jocasta is aware of this prophecy, the fact that she was aware that her husband Laius didn't come back, probably was murdered, and then Oedipus shows up, feet tied, got the limp. Maybe you start connecting some dots. I don't know. Why is she not connected the dots yet?
Yeah, so that's a lot of what happens in this play is the failure to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, we're not Freud, but there's other psychological insights that the play seems to invite us to come up with. Like, why are they not connecting the dots? And I think I think that's an interesting problem, but I think it's somewhat plausible. I mean, it has to be somewhat plausible because otherwise the play doesn't work. So she is, I guess, so sure, just as Oedipus himself is so sure of certain things that she sets aside certain possibilities. Not only does she, I think setting aside is even putting it wrongly, because to set it aside means she has to kind of have it in her hand for a second. I don't think that she even lets it ever touch her hand. She is so sure that certain things, she's sure that the baby died. She's 100% sure the baby died. And so it just never crosses her mind that there's a connection between anybody or anything and that baby.
Mm-hmm. You know, really random side tangent. I'm listening to an audiobook right now. Carl Jung, Man and His Symbols. Do you ever,
Mm-hmm.
I know you haven't read much Carl Jung.
I haven't, but I know about that book.
Yeah.
I've heard of Jung, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm paraphrasing one of the sections of the book that I just came across earlier this week. And basically, he's like, it absolutely boggles my mind how many people choose to live like without using their brain, basically. And he goes through the different types of ways people could do that. There are people who go through and live their entire life completely out of their body and disconnected from all of their senses, to the point where you tell them to go to the other room and get the keys, and they walk into the room, they look at the table, and they just can't see the keys, even though they're sitting right there. They're just completely disconnected from their senses.
Like a jellyfish.
Yeah, like just a non-player character in a video game that has totally disconnected from all of their sensory input. Then there's people who are smart, who are actually intelligent and smart, and they choose to use their intelligence in the dumbest possible way you could possibly conceive. Then there's people who they actively don't want to use their brain or intelligence in any way whatsoever. They want to completely shut that down. And so you've got this, out of your own senses, out of your own body type of ineptitude. You've got people who just don't want to use their brain at all. And then you've got people who use their brain and come to the dumbest, most unwise possible conclusions you could ever conceive.
So I gave the example a little while ago of Oedipus concluding or inferring that Creon must be after his power.
Yeah.
And that is a good example of hard thinking,
Yeah.
rigorous, you could say rigorous thinking, but completely wrong.
Completely
Right.
wrong. Yeah.
But it's based on a false assumption.
Yeah.
Or maybe several false assumptions. And I think that is one of the things that this play points us to, is the way in which our assumptions limit what we're able to think. And so this play is about breaking open, and how hard it is to break open assumptions once they're made. So you had a problem with it, Michael, which you told us about, but I wonder if you have any other problems. First of all, there's a big problem. There is one really obvious big problem. So let's summarize the argument. It was a little hard to follow, because actually I tried to translate this in a way that would stick to the Greek, which is to say it doesn't read that smoothly or clearly, as the Greek itself actually doesn't. The Greek makes you work a bit too.
Okay.
So the summary of this is she's making an argument. What's her argument? What's the conclusion of her argument?
The conclusion of her argument? Well, she brings out literally this prophecy and starts walking us through all the signs that I guess
Right.
lambasted her for not recognizing, but that's her argument is
Is the opposite.
the opposite, right?
The argument, so why does she mention all these signs? The things that were prophesied were her husband was, if they had a child, that child would kill her husband.
And she disregards that despite laying out exactly what happens.
But so why is she bringing it up at all? What's she trying to prove?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. Do you know?
I don't exactly know. I can take a stab at it. I don't mind
Okay.
doing that.
All right.
We just had this argument with Creon and Oedipus, and she's diffused the situation. Now she's presenting this prophecy that actually happened, but that she has disregarded the veracity of.
So she believes it didn't happen.
Yeah,
And that's why
exactly.
she's citing it.
Right.
She's proving that prophecy is hogwash. She says both at the beginning and at the end, I'll just repeat those parts. Hear me and learn why, as far as you're concerned, no mortal thing has any share in prophesying art. Now that's a very complex way of saying prophecy is BS.
Right.
Right? And in fact, it's the complexity of the way she says it that we can get into in just a second, because it reveals an awful lot about her and what's wrong with her thinking. But at the very end of her argument, she says, and so Apollo neither brought about that he become his father's killer, nor that Laius undergo the awful things he feared, to die at his son's hand. Such things prophetic speech set forth, so you should pay them little heed. So the whole point here is, don't worry about prophecy. You can afford to totally ignore it because it's got no basis in reality. It's never going to touch you, and your worries about it are completely out of whack, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a whole bunch, even without reading the details of her argument, there are a number of things that should like glaringly jump out at you as contradictory here.
Right.
Can you think of any of them?
That Laius actually died,
Yes.
for starters.
Well, Laius did die, but so that's I mean, she's sure, clearly she thinks it not because of anything from their son. But yes, Laius died. What else?
They're actively going to seek out the Oracle of Delphi. They're actually actively,
Right.
in a sense of desperation, going to get the oracular information.
Right.
And then they're saying, don't look at it.
Right. That is extremely contradictory. So she's saying, you can ignore prophecy. Maybe she's changed her mind since she was a young mother. But what did she do when she was a young mother?
She believed it and got it carried out.
Well, what did she do? She put her baby out in
Yeah.
the wilderness to die. A newborn infant.
Out of fear for prophecy.
Out of fear of prophecy, she let her baby be killed. Really, she was the murderess of her own child.
Right.
That's so. Unless she's changed her mind radically since then, that's a huge contradiction. Which is the same contradiction that you brought up, Aaron. So there's that's a terrible contradiction. There's some more contradictions here that are a little subtler.
This is such a sick play, it's hard to take its measure in that account.
Yeah.
You got a woman who's ready to kill her own child, then later on she ends up sleeping with that guy. Anyway, it's just gross. It's just gross.
It is gross, and the reason why gross things happen is because people are thinking so inconsequentially. They're so, she can think one thing at one moment and then argue the opposite at another moment, and not see that there's any problem with that.
Or reading into that and exploring why she might have a different take. Why there, in the past, she was willing to listen to and carry out prophecy, whereas now she's like, this is ridiculous to even try to, it's not for, where's the line at the beginning where, prophesying art is not for men at all.
Right. So let's go to that line.
Yeah.
Because, but before we do, there's another big contradiction.
Yeah.
Which is sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there.
Big contradiction.
The whole notion. Sorry, I'm tripping over my brain here. I'm going to go. Let's go to that passage, and I'll think of the other thing in a minute.
Okay.
You were just saying, you were paraphrasing or almost quoting it again correctly, Michael. No mortal thing has any share in prophesying art. Now, there's some contradictions in this. Oh, and that did make me remember what I was going to say before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is prophecy? What is prophecy supposed to be?
Prediction of the future.
Who's doing the predicting?
A predictor.
Some kind of divine sort of.
Yeah.
Someone that's able to read.
Nostradamus did a prediction, but stock market guys also do. Well, I guess it's not a prophecy. That's a prediction.
That's right. There's
Nostradamus was prophecy, I thought.
It was prophetic.
There's some sort of prediction program now that's called the Delphic Oracle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A stock market prediction program, or what?
In the context of this play and in the context of ancient Athens, the prediction would come from Delphi, which is Apollo, or Tiresias, who is also inspired by Apollo. So Apollo is the god behind not all prophecy, but some prophecies, and so it should be a divine. So what she's saying is there is no connection between humans and gods, and there's no communication possible between them. That's what she's saying. But the way she puts it is interesting because we know that she is going to be wrong with this argument. This is the other huge contradiction. We know because the myth cannot be changed, and the myth was known to the audience before they got to this play, as we talked about in our earlier discussions. So you guys know that that Oedipus did kill his father, and he did marry his mother, and so any assurances she gives to the contrary are already prima facie false. To us. She doesn't know this, but we know that it's got to be false. So the focus that we're going to have when we're listening to her speech is not, is this true or false? Because that already has been given away. The real question is, how could she make such a big mistake? How could she be so wrong? Where does her wrong-headed thinking come from? That's what we're really studying here. So as we listen to her speech, as soon as we know that she's arguing that you can ignore prophecy, we're saying, well, not in your case. You definitely can't. So let's look at what she says. She says, no mortal thing has any share in prophesying art. There's a number of problems in this statement. And so if you're looking for errors, they're actually in here. So let's put on our philosopher caps for a minute.
Well, first off, what is prophesying art? Prophesying like a piece of art? What does that even mean? I don't know what that means.
Okay, art means like skill.
Oh, in the art of prophesying.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, no mortal thing has any share in the art of prophesying. Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
It's hard to understand the sentence, and it's not my fault, even though I translated it, because I'm trying to do as best I could capture some of the difficulty. And it's not that Sophocles wrote bad Greek. It's that this woman has got her ideas so screwed up that she can't say it straight. But what she says reveals what she thinks. She's trying to make a philosophical statement here. It's first of all, so it is. This is why do I call it a philosophical statement? Because she's making a statement about things that are about the relationship between human beings and like divine knowledge, right? So that's a kind of one of the things that philosophers would think about, the possibility of that, and what would make it either possible or impossible. One problem. So there's just numerous problems here. Let's start with the end of the statement. Prophesying art. Is prophecy an art? Well,
I think when you start talking about the skillfulness of prophecy, you enter sort of the skillfulness of conning or like presenting a type of prediction.
Right. So an art, if it's a skillful thing, it means you learn it.
Yeah. Okay.
Prophesying is a divine gift. You can't learn to communicate with the gods. You either have it or you don't.
Okay.
So at least that's, you can argue with that if you want, but in this context, I think it's pretty clear that the prophets like Tiresias is a blind man, and it's sort of a gift. In other Greek myth, Cassandra is cursed with prophecy. First blessed and then cursed with prophecy. In the Iliad, that story is told.
I
Actually,
think
it's not in the Iliad, but
yeah,
the story of the Trojan War.
I could nitpick, but I get the point. I could like slightly gently disagree and then bring up some other stuff, but it's
Well, you can if you want. Go ahead.
So
Shut that out.
So one of the key things is, in every kind of shamanic rite or whatever, when someone becomes a shaman or they become an oracle of Delphi or whatever, you have a person, and that person had some kind of general talent or marking from an early age, and then that is recognized or unlocked at some point, and then that person gets groomed and trained by other people who are experts in shamanism. or what? Pick your poison, religious stuff. Very similarly, if somebody's a good actor, for example, you have a certain amount of innate talent or propensity towards it, or a good basketball player or whatever.
Right.
Everyone can learn to play basketball as long as they have, like working arms and legs, and they can, you know what I mean? There's people who are handicapped and fundamentally can't do it because they just don't have. But, for the most part, most people can at least learn the basics of how to shoot a ball in basketball. Same thing, people can get on, and we're making a podcast, but we're not professional actors, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a certain point where there is talent, and then there's technique, and they come together. And I think that goes into like prophecy as well. A minor prophecy that I think most people can get behind is the interpretation of dreams. There's people who have dreams all day long, and they are just like, wow, that was a crazy dream. The cow jumped over the moon. And that, they just leave it exactly as that. They're not even attempting to look into what that could mean about their internal world. Then there's people who interpret some of their dreams and then go to whatever, a paid therapist or a psychologist. Then there's people who are really, really gifted at interpreting those and figuring out what those things mean for people. And that typically isn't just them being a skilled from birth, absolutely hit the nail on the head every single time with all dreams. They have some, I guess, high IQ in dealing with psychology.
Yeah.
And then they also have a lot of practice that looks into it. So I would argue that in this way, prophecy is there's a talent component, and there is a sharpening of your skills, which could put it into an art bracket. But I digress. I also get your point.
So I find that really interesting because in just getting to the word prophesying, and I don't know what the Greek would have been, what word would have been used there if it would have been the equivalent to exactly prophesying.
I can tell you.
But
I can't remember. But
oh yeah, you've got the Greek there too.
Yeah, I got the Greek.
Hey, okay.
So, Mantikes technique. So Mantike is the skill is the activity of prophesying.
So I really think your point is very interesting because, from my perspective, I would say that you at least believe in some respect in prophesying, or rather, it was in these ancient societies they had roles for it anyway.
But do I believe in it?
Or at least in some context.
So let me add some information about this context. So let's say that I think I think what you laid out is very reasonable, and I think that the Athenians and the other Greeks, they recognized that reasonability, and they worked a device to make sure that there was no doubt that was not the case with Delphi. The Delphic oracle was a woman chosen from the common people of Delphi without any regard for skill. She was just picked, and she was just picked, and there was no transition period. She was just brought in and started prophesying. So that was, and at first some of this might be mythical. That is, we can't go back and check the facts on this, but the story is that at first these were young girls or unmarried women. I use the plural because there would have been a succession of them over many. This went on for hundreds of years. But there's a story that one of the people who came to consult ran off with the priestess, whose name, by the way, she's got a title which is the Pythia, and that's for Pytho. Pytho is the name of this, another name for the seat of prophecy at Delphi.
Okay.
And I can go into what that name might mean, but I will, since I mentioned it. It comes from the verb pynthanomai, which means to question and discover. So the Pyth, that's one again, lots of myth going in here, but let's leave that aside for a minute. So she was raped. She was taken away and raped, And after that, they decided that they would only use women who were in past menopause. So they changed it, and it was an older woman then.
So all the oracles of Delphi were older women at that point.
At some point. We don't know exactly when the changeover happened. Let's say it already had happened now. But the point is that they were chosen from an uneducated class of people who were just commoners in the town of Delphi, which is just a very small town where they wouldn't have had any extraordinary benefits of... I mean, you could say, well, there are foreigners coming to Delphi all the time, so they could learn a lot. And that's one of the hypotheses about why they were good, is that they picked up information and that they were an information exchange center. But as far as their training and their giftedness, it was thought that they had no training and that they were not selected for their giftedness.
Well, real quick, let me cycle back around to why I thought Aaron's point was really interesting. I thought it was very interesting because as an Athenian, if I could put myself in those shoes, not that I would be able to do that very well, reading that line, at least some of those Athenians believed in prophesying, and some of them probably didn't. So whenever you get to that line and you're exploring maybe some of the paths that leads you to from the perspective of Jocasta saying this, I think it's very interesting because at least some of the audience is going to say, wait a second, I completely disagree with her saying this. And at least some of the audience is going to say, yeah, there's nothing to that. It's just some random women out in Delphi that, it's just some process. So I think it's I find that interesting for the purposes of mapping what she's saying here.
Absolutely, and so I think it's really a solid place to start. As I said, I think that the Athenians probably were thinking reasonably as Aaron is, and they thought through that. And there's a little bit more to that in this very line, which shows that it was not just sort of a possible topic; it was an intensely discussed topic. And I'll show you where that is in the line. So let's go back to. First of all, so we've been discussing the phrase, just prophesying art. And we've really been focusing on the question of whether it was an art or not. By calling it an art, she seems to be denigrating it. That is to say, she's already assuming there is no divine connection there. But let's leave that aside for the moment. When she says, no mortal thing has any share in it. Now, first of all, why does she say thing? That doesn't seem. We're talking about prophets who are people. So that's a little strange, and especially when we put it with has any share. Now, it turns out we're very lucky to have another piece of literature that tells us that this phrase, for something to have a share in something, actually is a deep philosophical question that is associated with a philosopher named Parmenides. And we know about it because Plato later wrote a dialogue called Parmenides, in which Socrates meets Parmenides and they discuss whether or not things can have a share. And the question is, can things in the mortal world have a share in the divine? And can things in the divine domain have a share in the mortal? And the fact that it shows up about 50 years later in a Platonic dialogue means that this question had been circulating around in Athens for a long time, way before this play was written. And what that's all about is pretty simple. Let's say you have had a lot of myths about gods and their relation to humans, but once philosophy comes around, people are asking questions about whether the myths have a basis in reality or in logic. And so there are two ways to look at, or at least according to this discussion around the word share, there are two ways to look at that. Either the gods are of stuff so different from humans, they are eternal beings, they cannot die, And if you take the gods, if you assume the gods maybe are not just the gods of myth, so they're very human-like. The ones in the Iliad, for example, are very human foibles. They have all kinds of faults.
Sure.
But if you assume that, well, let's get away from that and assume that the gods are actually pure beings, or some kind of higher beings.
Okay.
Then the question is, what happens to them? What can possibly allow them to come into the time and space in which humans live? How can they come into this space, being that their essence is fundamentally incompatible with the essence of this time, the time-space continuum in which we live? So you have a choice. Either they do have a share, and there's some way for them to have a share, or they don't. And this play actually signals that it's interested in this topic. And the way it signals it is because Jocasta is putting herself forward as if she were a philosopher on one side of these questions. She's saying no share, no sharing, which means the gods, she's not saying the gods don't exist. What she's saying is they might exist, but no way for us to reach them. No way for them to reach us. So therefore, out of the question, they're irrelevant. And she's telling her son, you can consider them and any claim to relation with them to be irrelevant and ignorable. You can go ahead and ignore it.
You're referring to her son/boyfriend, right?
Her husband.
Oh, her son/husband?
Yeah, so I called him her son there, but she doesn't think of him as her son. She thinks of him as her husband. Yes.
Right.
She's assuring her husband that he's got nothing to worry about, in that he has a concern about prophecies that reached him, when he went to Delphi about killing his father and marrying his mother. I shall make visible to you signs of these things, she says, shortcuts. So first she puts herself forward as a philosopher, but I think we can look at this philosophical statement of hers and right away see that she's a bad philosopher. Again, because of the prophesying art, she is already presuming, if I'm right about the art part of it, she's presuming that this is contrivance rather than a genuine connection with the God. That somebody, maybe they have a skill or a talent, or maybe their mindset enables them to guess some things wisely and well. You might allow, but that's none of that. All of that falls short of, they can do it because, they just open themselves to be a vehicle for divine speech. Now, saying that, let's remember that in our last discussion, we were noticing that Apollo was using Oedipus as a vehicle for divine speech, even when Oedipus had no idea that he was being used that way. So it seems as though the play, and let's say that's happening right now. Let's say when Jocasta is speaking, it's possible that she's a vehicle for divine speech.
Okay.
So let's read this as if she was a vehicle for divine speech. She says, I shall make visible to you signs. Now, the word signs here is the same word as omens. In other words, divine signs. As opposed to evidence. She means evidence.
Okay.
And she is using the word the way it would be used in an Athenian court. So she says, I can give you evidence. And I could have translated this here with the word evidence. But I chose to use signs because that gives a feeling that it's not she who's talking. She means evidence, but instead of signs, maybe I should have even translated omens. I can make visible to you omens. Well, I thought that was going a little too far, because she would clearly not use the word omen. So I picked a middle of the road word that could be interpreted either way.
Okay.
So she says signs, and she means evidence, but maybe we can understand that she is actually going to present, and it wouldn't be she then who's presenting it. Who would it be? Present evidence that the God actually is communicating and is able to reach into our world. What would be that evidence? Well, she's going to give that evidence right now. She says, I can give you the evidence. And then she calls it shortcuts. I'm going to give you shortcuts. In other words, no argument. I'm just going to cut straight to the chase and show you the omen or sign. Okay, so then what does she say? A prophecy reached Laius once. I will not say from Phoebus himself. In other words, she's not going to say Phoebus, that is the god, is somehow in on the hoodwinking, but from one of his subordinates, that fate would have him die by a child's hand, and one who might issue forth from me and him.
That part I will not say from Phoebus himself. Is that not kind of harken back, if it's translating the same way, to the initial point where Oedipus arrives and says, I've come myself, not sent like a messenger or somebody else? Is that kind of the same?
I think that's a
criticism?
really excellent connection to make.
Okay.
It seems really promising. Yeah,
Okay.
seems on the same. So because Apollo is constantly, if he's really like present, hovering almost like unseen behind or above the stage through this whole play, he's trying to do things to like make things rattle, or give you an idea that there's somebody beyond just what mortals are capable of. Something else is going on here, but he can only do it through. So we're finding out, if the question is, if it's possible for divine beings to enter into the mortal world, exactly how do they do it? When and how? We know, in myth they pop out and they appear. But sometimes in myth they pop out and they appear as another human. So, for example, Michael, you could right now be Apollo, but you wanted to be here and you wanted to help in this conversation, but you could only do it as somebody. So you came as Michael.
Okay. That's interesting, yeah.
That's a possibility in some of the myths in, say, the Odyssey. That's the way it happens a lot in the Odyssey. So the question is, how is it that the gods come through? And what this play seems to be demonstrating is they can inhabit somebody's mind and body and speak. At least Apollo seems to be capable of doing that. We're seeing the signs of it. We're seeing the signs of it right here and now. And we've been seeing the signs of it throughout the play. Not throughout in the sense of in every line, but from the beginning, and at certain moments we see this. We see evidence that apparently Apollo is there and is communicating, and he's doing it without messing with the consciousness of the person that's his vehicle.
That's what I was going to ask. Is he?
Well, it's apparent she is clearly not aware of it, right?
So it's like a possession where the free will is almost kept intact somehow.
So back to your question about free will, this makes that so much more complicated, right?
Right.
She's still got her free will. She's got her free thinking.
Yeah.
She's thinking right now, and we're seeing her
She's
thought.
making the argument.
She's making the argument.
Yeah.
And at the same time she's crafting that argument is making another opposite argument on behalf of Apollo.
Yeah.
That is amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's almost mind-blowing.
Right.
And if Apollo is doing it, you would be amazed at his divine powers. Okay, so let's look at this again, or maybe, I don't know, do you want to continue a little bit more?
Yeah, let's do
I mean,
it.
so now we're just getting, so she's giving the facts.
Before we
that's
go on
fine.
to the next thing.
Yeah.
How serious are we? And by we, I mean you two. How serious?
Because you're not going to be there.
No, I mean, because I'm directing the question towards you two. So right now we're basically we're talking about the meaning of this play.
Okay.
And we're talking about the moral or the conflict. It's really about breaking down the essence of free will versus divine intervention. At what point does the material world and the divine cross over? What are the natures which those things cross over into? And the call to action on this play is actually you should be totally tuned in and dialed into the gods. Right? Would you say?
I think that's what we're learning from the play. And your question...
My question hasn't formed yet. This is my first part.
Well,
I want to confirm
This is setting up that
that's
context.
the nature of this play, right?
Well, so I think that we are... it's not sort of that obvious that we're sort of fumbling towards, or we're thinking our way towards that kind of realization, and we're only doing it because of the way we're carefully reading and making inferences from what we read, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to evade your statement. I'm just trying to say that it's not really black and white. It's part of an exploration that we're engaged in.
Right.
That's why I think all three of us.
But that is the exploration that is the thing we're exploring, right?
That is what we're exploring.
Yeah.
That's what we're exploring now. What we're literally exploring right now is, we're observing a woman who seems to know what she's thinking.
Yeah.
And know what she wants to do, and know what outcomes she's looking for, and has been looking for her whole life. And we're seeing what a calamity her attitude and her beliefs have caused, because she is, as you caught me saying that Oedipus was her son. She's thinking she's talking to her husband, but she is talking to her son. And at the moment that she finds out that son and husband are the same person. I mean, I don't want to be a spoiler here, but she's going to commit suicide.
Oh, well.
That's sort of understandable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's not just that you
tragedy.
found out that you've been married to your son for the last number of years.
The whole thing,
It's like everything you've ever believed in
Falls
was
apart.
wrong.
Yeah.
You were totally wrong. And your wrongness has made a horrible thing come out.
A grotesque abomination,
Yeah. And so the idea that what she's done and what her husband's son have done and what her first husband did before he was killed, all of that is to pollute the city. And it's really understandable that, the city is polluted.
So my question is, do you two... So imagine your whole life, everything that ever happens, all the stuff you've ever done, and then surgically remove this play from the experience.
That you're cutting out most of my life.
Well, you've had a long one, so
We'll have very different answers on this one, I feel like.
So, do you actually believe in divine intervention? Do you actually believe in spirits, spirit possession, oracles, talking to God? Do you actually believe in those things, fundamentally?
So this is a wildly complicated question, I feel like. So I guess first off, it requires us to look at whether or not there is such a thing as either spirits, and that could be in the context of religion or spirituality generally. And then it requires us to implement that in both seeing how it's... Because you asked us if we cut out this play,
yes or no? Do you believe in divine intervention, spirits, possession, and all the above? Are you even open to that, or is it a hard no outside the context of this play?
I'm definitely open to that.
Okay. Do you actively live a life where you pray to God? A God. Doesn't have to be Apollo. There's a lot of gods. Do you actually listen to spirituality?
Yes. Yeah.
So the simple and surface answer is no. But I feel like your question is I'm not sure what the purpose of your question is. Maybe it's just, I think about this all the time in relation to myself. And so it's not as simple as saying, do you believe in God or not? It's sort of like, if there were, I'm going to put it in different kind of language. If there were a God, what do I believe that God would be like? And if there were a God, I have beliefs about what that God would be like that I did not learn from anything in the Bible. So I have my own beliefs about that. And I don't think that's really the place to go into it here. I mean,
yeah, that's a whole breakout. That's a whole breakout conversation. That's a whole.
I see what I mean. I think that it's fair to bring it up because the play is asking us to think about that, and I find it extremely interesting to think about it. That's why I've spent so many years of my life working on this play. I find the play an extremely useful tool for thinking about these things because it's done such an amazing job of bringing the questions to the fore in a way that allows us and invites us, gives us the opportunity, gives me the opportunity to really think and feel about it, and sort of in a personal way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I give the play a huge amount of kudos
Mm-hmm.
for its capacity, its success in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like other works, that I like a lot. The works I like, maybe you could say, one thing they have in common is that they tend to make me think about, or help me to think differently about such questions. And every different work actually brings up different perspectives, and so it's not that you only need one of them. They're all of the ones that contribute in this direction, which are quite a few of the works of what we call the canon or great literature. They're willing to take on really tough questions, but they're really significant questions, and let us think about it again and again and again, and try to come up with our own personal feeling about it and decision about what's needed. So you said, do I pray? My answer is no, and that's because in my estimation, the God that I imagine would be a God worthy of calling a God would not care if I prayed or not. They would I see that as being trivial and absolutely off the mark. How I live is important.
Mm-hmm.
And
Let me ask a follow-up.
And even that's not simple.
But I think one of the interesting things about this is actually I don't know if there's a back and forth with Apollo or any of the Zeus or any of the I don't know. Is it Zeus that's Greek? Or
Zeus is
Roman?
Greek.
Okay, cool.
Well, then there's definitely back and forth with Apollo here. It seems like.
Yeah. I don't know how many gods are involved with
Apollo's the only one really in this play.
The Iliad has him, though.
So let's assume you're right. There's a god, and he doesn't care whether you whether you pray to him or not, or it,
or her, or whatever.
And so
I'm gonna join you.
I don't actually see Apollo in this play getting viscerally pissed that they're not praying to him. Is that are there any scenes where Apollo shows up and says, "I'm viscerally pissed"?
No.
Vic?
No.
Outside of these, where
Okay.
he's
But
overlaid.
The point that
No,
I'm getting at
is he pissed? Yes.
Yeah.
is he? How do you know?
Well, why do you think
There's
that
pollution in the.
Yocasta is going to commit suicide, and Yocasta had her baby, was willing to have her baby put to death, and God has gone to a lot of trouble. So let's leave the being pissed out of it for a second. Let's say I don't know what Apollo's emotions are. What I know is that it's extremely important to Apollo to not have his let's say, his name taken in vain. That is, it is important that one not say things like this about prophecy. One not turn prophecy into what you were suggesting it could be earlier when you were saying, well, it could be, somebody extra sensitive, perceptive, intuitive, and they put these qualities together, and they are actually able to see some things. Okay, good, but that's not that's got nothing to do with divine communication. Divine communication has to do, and it comes out in this play, but maybe we should wait till later. We're not that far into the play here. Let's see what's. So I don't want to give away the game before the play, before we've seen it sort of evolve out of the play. What we're seeing evolve out of the play right now is that a person can be entirely ignorant of even when they're thinking directly about a God involved in their life, they can be entirely ignorant of the way that God is actually involved in their life. And so she is making these statements, and she is interpreting facts in a way that is absolutely, we can see that it is absolutely wrong-headed. She's actually not right about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And even going back to, I want to just even go back
Yeah.
to like almost a technical point. What's the relationship between philosophy and real life? And philosophy is maybe a way of just saying reasoned belief. Reasoning about things that otherwise can only be believed because we can't know them, right? So it's about things we don't know and can't know. She says, I'm going to give you evidence for the fact that no mortal thing has any share in prophesying art. Now, the statement, no mortal thing has any share in prophesying art, is a quasi-philosophical statement. I call it quasi because I think she botches it. She doesn't say it. She kind of like mixes the philosophy all up so that she doesn't see what you have to believe to be on the one side or what the other side. So that leads to the question, how is she using philosophy here? I'd like to know what you guys think because I'm not totally clear on it myself, but just to get it started, I'd say, is she making a statement like this to in a sense, resolve a philosophical debate that she doesn't even really understand
Mm-hmm.
by bringing in these facts, which we know she has completely misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which means that so we see her sort of, either she's using the philosophy to support herself, or she's using her own experience to sort of refute philosophy, which I think is probably that one more. But either way, she's sort of playing loose with philosophy. In other words, she's a terrible philosopher because she's just sort of using philosophy itself instrumentally. She's not really taking it seriously any more than she takes seriously the possibility that Apollo is involved in her life. So she is supposedly taking a side on this issue, but actually she disses both sides. She's not serious with either. She's not a good philosopher, and she's not a good believer of Apollo. So what does that leave her? Don't you make a judgment about that kind of person? I mean, what does she really value?
Yeah, the other question too. There's obviously a theme of integrity that's involved with any of this. It's when your thoughts, feelings, and actions are all in harmony, or all aligned, right? Your thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so these folks, like this chick ayahuasca. What is her name? Yocasta. So Yocasta, for example, and her husband/child, Oedipus, they're just a walking, talking bag of contradictions. The fundament. Okay, so he goes out and does whatever he wants, gets himself into a pickle, then prays to God, then gets the answers, takes it or leaves it, whatever feels the best, whatever's going to be the most gratitude, what's going to be ever the biggest payoff for him, then discards it, and then takes and discards it, and just plays every single side of the field. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's certainly clear about what she does.
Yeah,
and Laius too.
Mm-hmm. And
her husband, her first husband.
What is the actual, whatever you want to call it, moral background, or what is the actual foundation? What is the backbone of a person who does this? What do they actually stand for? Well, fundamentally, I mean, if you are doing that stuff, you're just a completely selfish freak. You are the center of your own everything. There's nothing. Yeah. There's no higher order that you're giving yourself up to.
That's right. I mean, a woman who's willing to put her baby out in the wilderness. I mean, and just leave it to die.
What a total freak. Yeah. What a complete freak.
Isn't it pretty clear at that point that she's so? Listen to.
And then a guy who wants to be, and he has no kids, right? Oedipus and her don't have kids because she's.
Oh no, they do.
They do. Yeah.
That's
2, right?
They have 4.
Are they inbred? Are they do they have mental problems from being inbred?
Nope.
Wow. Anyway.
They're the subject of other plays.
Oh God.
You know the play Antigone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, Antigone. Yeah.
Antigone is Oedipus's daughter.
And the one with the where his two sons have the battle that we talked about.
Eteocles and Polynices.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
They were the two heroes or non-heroes of the play The Seven Against Thebes, because they end up killing each other at one of the gates of Thebes.
So I kind of do have. So clearly, by the time that Yocasta has left her child to die, she's clearly acting morally wrong. But I don't exactly blame her for some of these things, because some of these things, you talk about reaching out to the spiritual or religious order seeking some kind of answer. The answers are really bad in this play. No one ever gets an answer that is something that could realistically kind of be carried out. I mean...
Well, yeah, I think... I mean, so do you object to the story of Abraham sacrificing Isaac?
Do I object to the story of Abraham sacrificing Isaac? I would have to look at it again. I haven't looked at it in a long time.
Okay, well...
But in terms of this story, what I object to is I find it really difficult to condemn her from the get-go, because she first gets this prophecy that says you cannot have any kids at all with your husband.
Right.
And
if you want to save the city.
And first, if you want to save the city.
She doesn't report that here. We know that from another play. The fact that she doesn't report it here.
Maybe.
Now, a lot of people just say, well, because Sophocles doesn't want to use that part of the myth. But I personally think there's a better way to interpret it, which is she knows very well what she was told, and she doesn't want to tell Oedipus about it because it makes her look bad.
Well, that's one possibility. She could be self-censoring.
Or she just she wants to go with her own desires and just doesn't even want to wants to pretend like it's.
I think that's connected in there. Yes.
Yeah.
She always has wanted to go with her desires. So look, if you really believed in God, the god Apollo, or whatever god is your god, and that god were to inform you that if you want to save your city, you're a king and a queen, you want to save your city, there's one thing you can do, and that's just refrain from intercourse.
Well,
the two of you refrain from intercourse with each other. That will do it.
Well,
would you do it or not?
It would be really.
It would depend on how much you believe the prophecy.
That's right. But that's why I brought up the Abraham and Isaac.
But you also provide
story.
The justification for the worst thing that happens in this play. And the worst thing that happens in this play is that she tries to kill her son. Well, after she's failed to refrain...
She also they destroy the city.
Yeah, exactly. After she fails to refrain, her and her husband, they have a kid, then she is left with this quandary of if she actually believes the prophecy, if she actually believed it before and just failed to refrain... Now she's left with the struggle of like, okay, I have this kid. This has been the result of this prophecy. If this is carried out, then the entire city will be destroyed. I don't know if it goes into the details of Laius will be killed. I don't think it mentions that Oedipus grows up and marries her. But
no, it doesn't.
There is a moral quandary there where it is this kid that yes, she was wrong and she failed, but there is a moral quandary of like, trying to save the city, and that in no way justifies the murder of the child. But
there's no way to save the city after she had intercourse and the baby was born. There is no provision in the prophecy that says the city can still be saved. Now the city can't be saved, and there's no way to stop the child from growing up and killing the father.
But for me, it contextualizes and humanizes her to some extent, even though she is carrying out something that is awful and morally wrong. Yeah. I find it important for my exploration of the character in the passage, because it is very easy to immediately condemn, but like...
Yes. Well, so most people love Oedipus and think of him as a hero.
That's interesting.
And so I think that goes along with your own inclination to sympathize with the characters.
Most people? You mean most people in...
Most people who have who've read this play and talk about it do not speak ill of Oedipus. Very few say he's at fault. Very few.
And he really didn't do anything wrong. I mean...
I think he did.
Yeah. Well, killing Laius.
Well...
But he could not possibly...
We haven't got to that. We haven't really got to the places where we know what he did wrong.
Okay.
Right here, what we're seeing is that his mother, his wife...
Yes.
Is thinking extremely badly, unclearly, and it reveals a kind of self-centeredness on her part, a belief that she gets to determine what pleasures she is and is not going to have. And this whole speech she's giving here is all, honey, you don't have to worry. She wants him not to be worried. Is it reasonable for her to want him not to be worried? It turns out it's completely unreasonable. But that doesn't stop her from thinking, I just want everything to be good.
But it is interesting that I find it, both Jocasta and Oedipus are faced with really the same sort of they get this prophecy and it's like a very, very bad answer, and they have to do something that they really don't want to do in order to quote unquote save the city. Right. And I guess maybe that's the heroic aspect.
It's not only save the city, but actually end Laius's life.
And Laius's life.
So if he wants to save his own life, if he believes in Apollo, if he takes Apollo seriously, then Apollo's saying, you can have sex with your wife, but you'll be killed by the child that's born from it. So think about it. It's sort of like saying, do you want to have sex without a condom and take the chances?
At that point, they just need to file
it's much worse, because all we get when you have sex without a condom is
you get a kid.
You either get a kid or a venereal disease. Two possibilities.
Right.
But here it's amped up to if you're going to have sex, you're going to die. So make your choice. And it's a test of faith. That's why I brought up the Abraham, Isaac, because it's clearly a test of faith. That is, Apollo is saying, I want to know if you really, because and again, why would Apollo do this? Why would Apollo want to know if these people really respect him? Can you see? Well, because can you see the answer? It's got to do with Delphi. He's given the people a way to get good advice, but he only wants to give it to them if they're going to respect it.
Okay.
Now, does it turn out they are respecting it? Well, Athens isn't. We're told by Thucydides that the Spartans went to Delphi to consult about the war that just broke out right before this play was written. They went. But we are not told by Thucydides that Athens went, and you can infer from the play that Athens didn't go, because the play seems to be arguing you should take Delphi seriously. Why would Athens not go? Because they knew they'd be told something that they didn't want to be told, which is if you want to save your city, you're going to have to make some compromises. You're not going to like it, but you have to do it. And the Athenians were... Well, we're not into, just like Laius and Jocasta, we're not going to give up intercourse.
I've got a question. Does, aside from the demi possessions that occur, where there's a term in spirituality called channeling, when someone channels a higher entity, right? And that's effectively what's happening whenever you see all these double entendres, and you can tell by the way that they're talking and their posture and everything. Yeah. It's not them anymore.
Just to ask you, though, by channeling, do you mean that they're trying to channel, or they're just doing it unknowingly?
Both happen. Both happen.
Channeling in this play, it's only... Well, Tiresias probably knows.
Sure. So both channeling is just whenever some kind of entity, basically it's a pseudo-possession where the entity is talking through you. And you're conscious and you're, alive or whatever, and then you're tapped into this other thing. Yeah. And you might know that it's channeling you, that it's being channeled through you, like you're channeling it however you want to, whatever. You might know that the channeling is taking place, or you might not know. In classical channeling lore or whatever. And so aside from channeling, is there any strict... Is there any, because I haven't read the play in its entirety, sorry. So is there any moments where Apollo shows up, or whatever god shows up in a physical form and does something actually physically supernatural? Or are all of the instances come through visions, channeling, other human being, through a human buffer?
They're all through the human buffer.
They're all through the human buffer. Okay, so what it looks like to me is, and this is a totally different perspective. I have not done a 700-line analysis on the play, or a 700-page analysis on the play. But what if the issue here is not that Apollo is jealous or mad at them for not following him? That these people are getting in trouble because their own ego is getting in their way. Their own ego is getting in their own way. And they're being given gentle signs. and it's just poetically, perfectly happening exactly wrong.
Yeah, I
Does
love
that make
that
sense?
idea. To me, that actually is better. And I take back any admission I think I might have made earlier that Apollo would be angry. Apollo seemed, and I was trying to say this a little bit when I was saying that, why would Apollo test Laius and Iocaste? And I think it's because if he's going to have a meaningful channel of communication with mortals, he needs the mortals to actually take him seriously.
Yeah.
That is, you don't get to pick your prophecies.
Right.
When you get a prophecy, whether it's one you like or one you don't like, you need to take them equally seriously. And when you have a problem where you think you're going to be told to fix it in a way that you know how you should fix it, but you don't want to, if you choose not to go consult, you're in a sense affronting the God's willingness to help you, because you're working against your own good, and your own good. By sort of blinding yourself, and the blinding, of course, is a metaphor later in this play, but you're blinding yourself by not opening the channel of communication with the God. So if you did open the channel of communication with the God, you'd already be opening yourself to the possibility that you're wrong and you're going to be told something you don't want to hear to fix it. If you refuse to go consult, it's because you don't want to hear, which means that you don't want the God's help, which means that you're going to make a mess of things. And you don't, and then are you going to ask for the God to help you? The God's going to go, I don't think so. It doesn't work like that. You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to mess everything up and then come and ask me to fix it. Now, maybe you can. Maybe at that point you still can go, because actually I think that is a possibility. You just got to understand that the cost is now going to probably be even greater for you, because you made a bigger mess.
Isn't that kind of the Iliad, where like everyone messes everything up and they call in the gods, and it's a different moral, I guess.
Yeah, no, but yes, there's some interesting parallels there. Yeah, for sure. But in this situation, so here the sticking with, we're allowed to think about the Iliad, of course. All of the people who went to this play knew the Iliad well.
Okay.
The Iliad was, as far as we can tell, the Iliad was very, very well known. Was recited frequently. There were professional reciters who recited at special occasions the Iliad and the Odyssey all the way through. So it can be in the background of our thinking here. Okay. I mean, there are moments in this play that are reminiscent of the Iliad.
Yeah. So we're at about an hour and 15 minutes right now in this episode.
Yeah.
What's our next turning point for this? Are we are we at our halfway point on this analysis? Are we going to what's our next step?
We could probably end it here, and then we could
for today, for sure.
Yeah, for today, and then we could do another analysis, finishing this one up later.
Is this
the right? So the question is whether we only want to have one more discussion or more than one.
I think we can just do as many as we want, right?
I'll just tell you what the choice is, or why there would be a choice. Some of the questions you're asking are addressed, or they're not addressed directly, but we are prompted to address them later in the play, but not all at one spot. And so we might want to pause at a couple or three places, and we maybe could look at several passages even in one session. Maybe that's like a doable goal for next time would be, because some of the passages, maybe it depends, so we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe I'll pick one of the passages. I have kind of in mind one of the passages where you start seeing the concatenation of events and judging that. And I think we could maybe start with that next time. But what happened this time, as soon as we started it, the discussion took off and it mushroomed, and which actually what I want and expect to happen. So I'm just saying, if the plan that we're going to cover several passages might turn out to be impossible.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say so. I don't want to just go straight to the end of the play. I think we've got several more landing spots we can look at least at a minimum.
Okay.
Before we quit.
Okay.
Cool.